Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we thank you for joining us here on JSRA Chase Saturday. We are live at Donington Park in the Radical Cup, and as you can see, we have a very full grid here this evening. But my name is Chad Dillon, and alongside me is Mr. Calvin Ropo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back and bigger and better than ever, literally and figuratively. This is the single largest grid we've had in any event hosted by the JSRA. 25 unconfirmed drivers here around Donington Park. It's 3.1 kilometers, 11 corners of non-stop action. The pack is so close, Chad, and we have not seen the fastest times as yet. Drivers are still pushing the limits here in the final moments of free practice, gearing up for the quali session, which should be very interesting. I don't think there's going to be a lot of free air or clear space out there on the track with so many drivers on the grid.
No, absolutely. There is going to be a lot of jockeying for position and trying to open up a bit of space to get your laps in. And as you rightfully said, Kale, some of these rivals might be holding just a little something back before we get into the qualifying session. The fastest times we have seen for the week, once again, the Colombians showing that they have the pace. They have Luis Felipe Gil and Estefano Barrera have both cracked into the 103s on the practice servers, so we will see if that time is yet still available to them when we get into the quali session, because it's one thing to do it in practice, but certainly quali is when it counts for track position. So we will be seeing what those rivals can do. But you are also correct in pointing out that the grid is very close. Looking at the top 7 at the moment, not counting Tim Stahl, who has done a 104. Oh, there he is rejoining now, a 104.4. I mean, even with Tim Stahl, the top 8 separated by 4/10 of a second. So that is going to be very telling for that qualifying session, if that is actually the margin for which these drivers can improve or lose position.
Half of the grid is within 1 second of each other. It is going to be all out warfare here tonight at Donington Park. Free practice is just about wrapping up now, and I'll inform our viewers, and thank you again for joining us on YouTube and Sportsmax app. This series is designed to push drivers and their teams to the limit, showcasing skill, strategy, and the raw pace of the Radical SR3 XXR. So prepare yourselves for a series of races held on some of the most iconic and challenging tracks around the world. Each event structured to test the driver's ability to adapt and conquer, with a mix of technical circuits and high-speed layouts, ensuring a diverse racing experience. We can expect some heart-pounding action, fierce competition, and unforgettable moments as they navigate the twists and turns of each unique venue. And our racing format tonight, we are just wrapping up 1.5 hours of practice. Qualifying will begin shortly, and it's going to be 15 minutes. Then we'll have the main events, two 20-minute races, the second of which will be a reverse grid of the top 10 from the first race.
Absolutely, and the first race, the grid will be composed solely of those who stick themselves in a position on the grid based on their qualifying lap time. But yeah, no, looking up and down the order, some names there, and you mentioned the team game, Kale. Colombia came out firing in round 1 at Road Atlanta, dominated both races, and we will see if they can continue that trend or if any of the other teams can respond. Tim Stahl at the top of the timing sheets, a new recruit to JSRA Team A, I believe. He is filling in for one of the drivers who will not be present in this series, but he now gives some reinforcement to Raven Plummer, who sits alongside him at the top of the timing sheets at the moment. But if you look right behind them, less than a tenth away from Raven, both of them, the two Colombians, and they gave us a show in round 1. And they, again, are they hiding pace? I guess we'll find out when we get into qualifying, but they are a force to be reckoned with. Nova Racing, and right now it looks like a clash between them and JSRA Team A for the top spot. Just solely going based on qualifying. Of course, race conditions and quali conditions are going to be very, very different. But looking at the timing sheets, certainly we are in for a show.
And speaking of teams, Nova Racing Team A, after a dominant first race last time out at Road Atlanta, sits at the top of the team championship with 48 points. An excellent result for them so far. JSRA Racing Team A sits in second with 20 points. Nova Racing Team B in third with 15 points, and JSRA Team B sits in fourth with 14.5 points. GT Panama Racing Team A, 13.5 points in fifth. JSRA Racing Team C in sixth with 13.5 points as well. And our Tito Racing Team A in seventh with 10.5 points. And speaking of points, the drivers are now about to make their way out of the pits to start their qualifying session to position themselves in the best possible position to capitalize on the open circuit ahead of them for the race. And Tim Stahl is the first one to leave the pits, followed very closely by Estefano Barrera. Perhaps this is a sign of things to come in the race in about 14 minutes time.
Absolutely, those two drivers jockeying for positions, trying to find the cleanest line to get their laps done. Certainly jumped out early to not want to deal with the traffic. As you can see, almost the entire grid is leaving the pits, and they are all going out to try and set a lap. But this is going to be tight, Kale, as you mentioned there. Tim Stahl running wide, giving Estefano Barrera the open air ahead of him to be the first one to get through a flying lap. But
perhaps a little bit strategic there from Tim to pick up a little bit of the slipstream heading through the final chicane there. And we're going to be on board with Tim as he starts his flying lap. The first corner approaches you quite nicely. It's a really wide berth to open up that right hander. Late braking, trail braking, get this very air sensitive and very pitchy car settled and through that corner. The right hander continues for the next two corners before you head down into the left and right section of Craner curves. Then it's into the old hairpin, flinging that car into the corner and just hoping it sticks. Maybe run a little bit wide there, Tim, but through Starkey's bridge now, up the hill through the Schwanz curve and through the right-hander of McLean's. It's a short run. Up the hill again, ooh, a little bit wide there for Tim, trying to keep it pointed in the correct direction. Now through Coppice and then down Starkey Straight, where we're going to see a few moves being made, I think, into that final chicane. That is Robert's corner. And Estefano is going to be the first to set a benchmark time. You try to avoid those sausage curves on the inside there of that chicane. Estefano crosses the line and sets a 104.5. No slouch of a time to begin with, and the rest of the field now has their work cut out for them.
Absolutely, and Tim Stahl behind, it's worth noting that still in the 104s, just about 4/10 off Estefano Barrero with a very scrappy lap, so certainly there's more time out there. But already we see the Colombians showing us that, yeah, maybe they were keeping a bit of pace on the back burner. They are both now almost identical, 100th of a second between Estefano Barrera and Luis Felipe Gil at the top of the timing sheets, and already those times are faster than we saw them do in the practice session. So is there more on offer from those two drivers at the top of the timing sheets, and are we in for another round of Colombian dominance? It's already shaping up to be that way, but we are in the early stages of qualifying. All of the drivers still trying to find the clean air to put in a good, respectable, valid lap time that they can say, okay, this is as much as I have in the tank. So certainly we will see what improvements are out there. And I must say, Kale, this is the first time I am struggling to see all of the drivers on the timing sheet. I have to be scrolling up and down to see where the improvements are happening, because I cannot make out the list of the entire 25 drivers across the timing sheet. So it's good to see the numbers out like this.
Absolutely, Chad. I have to agree with you wholeheartedly there. as I was said earlier, I think this is the single largest grid we've had in any event hosted by the JSRA. So perhaps the Radical Chase series here vying for that top spot of the most watched fan favorite series, which is usually held by CTCC, as Mikhail Charles there not holding his line, but it's usually held by the CTCC. But perhaps with the field as stacked as it is now, we will be spoiled for racing action. I don't think there's going to be a dull moment. I think you and I, Chad, as commentators, definitely have a bit of work on our hands to keep up with what's happening as Carlos moves up into P8 now. Jaden Harrison not yet breaking that 105, and as I said it, he did, down into the 104.6s, followed by Stephen Pommels, less than tenth of a second behind in P4. P5 is right down to P8. Sorry, P1 down to P8, separated by 4 tenths, and behind them, the next 4 tenths takes us all the way down to P13, and the next 4 tenths takes us down to P17, Chad. They are so close. The margins are razor thin. As you can see, ahead of Stephen Pommels there. I'm not sure who those two drivers are, but they are absolutely pushing each other around the grid, and it seems off the track as well.
Yeah, that looks like two of the drivers from Team A based on the livery. Well, or it might have been Team C actually, looking at the livery. Yeah, I'm not sure who those two drivers are, but they are certainly out there maybe playing a bit of the team game here in qualifying as well, trying to give each other the toe up and down the circuit to, oh, somebody got it very, very wrong there. Trying to give themselves the toe to get it, you know, to get the maximum out of the long straights here around Donington Park, because the entire back section of the track right down to start finish is almost just one long straight plus a chicane, so definitely there would be some time to find there if you are running into. You just have to make sure you don't trip each other up in the early stages of the lap. But I'm looking at the timing sheet scale, and even with, you were saying down to P9 is about 4 tenths of a second. Again, we have not seen Tim Stahl put in a lap that looks like a very clean lap as Luis Felipe Gil there improves and goes to the top of the timing sheets. And as I was saying it, Tim Stahl missing out by 1,000th of a second, as I was pointing out that his lap the first time around was not the cleanest of laps, and to still find himself in the 104s was no small feat. And there he has found a clean lap, clearly just missing out on the provisional pole spot by 1,000th of a second. My goodness.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what we meant. 1,000th of a second. That is almost incomprehensible. But here around Donington Park, in these cars, with these drivers, these are the margins that are going to be determining who's going to be sitting at the front of the grid, who's going to be in the middle, and who's going to be at the back. And looking at the minimap, Chad, it's like one long snake. It just never ends. Just driver after driver after driver after driver. There's going to be so much scope for opportunity, no matter where you are on the grid. Anything can happen, and of course, we're going to have the inevitable contact here or there. Of course, you would expect that with such a stacked grid, and drivers are going to be a little bit nervous, perhaps. Trying to put their best foot forward early on in the race. And of course, that's going to lead to the inevitable spin here or there. So hopefully not too much carnage here tonight. But that is one of the benefits of sim racing. You just teleport to the pits and no one gets hurt. The only thing is that you walk away with a bruised ego. And I think JSRA Team A definitely going to be looking to bruise the Nova Racing Team A's ego, as they are separated by little and nothing.
Actually, Kale, as we were talking there, Tim Stahl found an even faster lap, a 104.188. So we are flirting with the 103s at the moment with 6 minutes left in this qualifying session, and Tim Stahl ahead of the field by a margin of 0.3 of a second, and all the way down to 11th, now 12th position we have the 104s. So half the grid, as you mentioned, separated by about a second. That is the recipe for some brilliant racing action. And I hear you and your commentators curse over there calling down the contact. So we will see what happens. But I don't think you meant it in any malicious way. I'm just teasing you after all. But yeah, no, I mean, with a grid this size, it's almost inevitable, really. But hopefully the rolling start mitigates some of that possibility. We have seen it benefit us. Yesterday in CTCC, we thought for sure that there would have been carnage in turn one, but we were pleasantly surprised to see how that played out. So let's hope they can pleasantly surprise us once again, and we get the same kind of brilliant racing action that we got yesterday out of this race, with a very stacked grid up and down the order. And yeah, notable Tommy Gore, this is I think his first race with us in this particular series and for the season actually overall, but you know, not looking so great at the bottom of the timing sheets at the moment, maybe just coming to grips with the car, but we will see if he can do anything to make his mark as we go through these sessions. But right now, Tim Stahl sitting comfortably at the top of the timing sheets, looking up and down the order. Team A and Noble Racing look like they are vying for that victory. You mentioned the bruised ego of JSRA Team A, Kale, and I'm sure they will be thinking this is our chance to kind of claw back some of that margin that Noble Racing took out of race number one.
Definitely, Chad, definitely. And speaking of comfort, I'm calling it. Whether or not it's Tim, Raven, Estefano, we are going to see a driver in the 103s with 3.5, just about 3.5 minutes left in this race. Sorry, in this qualifying session. It's already so action-packed. I may think it's the race, but we saw them during the practice session throughout the week, dipping into the 103s, 103.7, 8, and 9. So perhaps not pushing a little bit too much, or maybe just not hooking it up as they were able to during testing and practice. But I am keeping my fingers crossed for a 103 as Gilles there sets another another improvement for himself. Not quite the fastest lap, but ever closer to the man on the top spot. And mentioning Tommy Gore, it's, you know, one would expect, and not to put any pressure here, but Tommy is one of the few, if not the only driver here that has raced here at Donington in a radical in real life. So maybe the conditions were a little bit different. Definitely there were not so many drivers on the grid, so maybe just having a bit of a time here getting up to speed. But we're definitely going to be seeing some tips and tricks from Tommy, one of the few real life racing drivers here at the JSRA. And there's someone there that spun in the final chicane. Driver is definitely pushing it, as is Raven Plummer here, pushing this car to its limits, sliding that thing throughout the first corner. I'm not sure if much of that will be tolerated by the car during the race. These tires do see degradation, and the car can get damaged if they spin off into a barrier or two. Raven there going a little bit wide, I think. That may still have been
that certainly still counts as a valid lap. We've seen all of the drivers doing it. The track limits here are a little bit more lenient than we've seen in the past, and certainly that will help when the drivers are trying to get the maximum out of the car on the track. But Kale, I am looking at the margin from P4 down to P6. That is no margin at all between those three drivers at the moment, and
literally between 5 and 6. Literally no margin, and it's the exact same time.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited for this race. Certainly, if these times are representative of what we can expect from these drivers, it's gonna come down to which driver is the more consistent in racing conditions, as well as you mentioned, the tires, which driver can keep their tires alive, because I think a lot of these drivers will be out here on the soft tiles trying to set their laps, and that is also worth mentioning, ladies and gentlemen. We are using two separate compounds here. It is the soft and the medium. I believe the hards are available, but I don't think we'll be seeing many drivers using the hard tiles. They're not the greatest tiles on these cars. Speaking from personal experience, the mediums should hold up the race distance, and you certainly get a lot more grip out of the mediums than you would the hard. So I believe the mediums are the tire of choice for the race, but these times are being set on the softest compound of tire available to the drivers.
And it's about 30 seconds left in this qualifying session. The drivers at around the corner just before the backstretch there, I think, will be the only ones to cross the line and start another lap. Driver there in 12th, Mikhail Charles, I think, will be the final driver to, be able to put a time down, and he will have the advantage of the track at its most rubbered in. These drivers have had 15 minutes to get around the track and lay some rubber down into the tarmac, making it ever more speedy. Right now, Raven Plummer not really improving. Estefano Barrera crossed the line already, and it's going to be at least P3 for him with a 104.3. Jaden Harrison rejoins the server a bit too late, and a 104.5. I can't say 5, I have to say 539 to specify, because a 104.5 could be Raven, Jaden, Carlos, or Luis Daniel Velez.
Yeah, no,
Four drivers within a tenth of each other.
yeah, no, it is crazy, and I'm looking to see if Tim. I thought Tim might have been on his final lap there trying to improve, but he does have provisional pole, as there are a few more drivers out there trying to compete a lap, but I don't see any massive improvement on the timing sheet. So at this point, it looks like Tim Stahl will take pole position here in this particular competition to start at the top of the grid, and it could definitely have an advantage here in this session, because looking at the grid behind you, don't want to be caught in any of that traffic at any point in time. Over 20 minutes, drivers will be pushing to the max to try and get themselves in the right position to make moves and to improve upon their starting positions. But where you want to be is where Tim Stahl will start this race at the top of the sheets and at the front of the grid. Alongside him, one of the rocket ships from Nova Racing, Luis Felipe Gil, and his teammate Estefano Barrera starts directly behind him. It's JSRA Nova, JSR Nova, JSRA, the team A's of Nova Racing and JSRA currently trying to fight it out for the top 5 positions. We will see who comes out on top by the time we get to the checkered flag in race number 1. And again, remember, race number 2 will be a reverse grid of the top 10. Points are scored all the way down to 12th position, and the fastest lap counts for 1 additional point. Race number 2, half points, so certainly still things to play for in both races, and you want to take the maximum amount of points out of the weekend for yourself and your team. So lots to play for in the next 40 minutes between the two 20-minute races, and these drivers are gearing up for all out war.
And if you're just joining us, thank you for joining us on YouTube and Sportsmax app. My name is Kilvaden Roper, and alongside me is Chad Dillon. We are here in the second round of the Chase for Pace Team Series. And the series is designed to push drivers and their teams to the limit, showcasing skill, strategy, and the raw pace of this radical SR3 XXR. We just saw the end of a very close 15-minute qualifying session, and we're about to head into the first of two 20-minute races. And the grid is as follows: Tim Stahl in P1, Luis Felipe Gil in P2, Estefano Barrera in P3, Raven Plummer sits in P4, Jaden Harrison in P5, Carlos Villavicen. I'm so sorry if I butcher this name. Carlos Villavicencio sits in P6, Luis Daniel Velez in P7, Stephen Pommels P8, Mark Anthony Eaton P9, Michael Paisley P10, Eman Rayan in P11. And it's going to be Mikhail Charles P12, Senna Somerville P13, Johan where did that name go? Johan Kandra Kusum Kusuma Putra in P14, Roger Killer P15, Michael McName P16, Andres Ceballos in P17, P18 is Grant Bell, P19, Ramiro Dominguez, Vincent Da Silva in P20, Julia Brown, P21, P22 is Michelle Wallace, 23rd is Kimani Eastman, 24, Andres Lopez, and P25. Tommy Gore,
That
that
was a
was a mouthful.
mouthful. Yeah, no, certainly, Kale, you had your work cut out for you there going through the grid, but it's all about the racing action that we're about to get. Remember, folks, it is a rolling start, so when the flag goes, the drivers will not be going immediately. The safety car will take the lead of the field, and then we will get the safety car outlap, the formation lap, if you will, for the drivers to get them their tires in the right window and to set the grid up for the rolling start on the following lap. So we are about to get going in a few moments time as we get the lights coming on with the racing action that we are promised from this grid. The lights will go out, the safety car will take the lead, and we will be on a formation lap heading out any moment now.
And Chad, if we could see the minimap here from the helicam, it should really just there on this track. Donington is not a small track in any way, shape, or form. The sheer number of drivers out on the grid make it look like a go-kart track. There are so many drivers, 25 drivers, and all of them with an equal chance, an equal opportunity to be the first across the line. It's going to be action-packed from the very get-go. Even here on the formation lap, we can see a couple of contacts here and there, just a little bit of rubbing between drivers as they get each other, or rather give each other space as they are trying to warm up those tires and get ready to go racing in a few short moments. It's only 11 corners here in this layout of Donington Park. We will be getting underway in just a few short moments.
Yeah, no, I'm certainly looking at the safety car leading them away, and you were talking about it looking like just one continuous link earlier. You ever played the snake game? That's what I'm seeing on the minimap at the moment, watching the grid of 25 drivers, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, look at that. We're almost down the straight to start the long back straight there, and we're still seeing drivers coming through turn 6, sorry. It's crazy to see the numbers that we have grown to in the last year and change here at the JSRA. As this is very early days in season 2, we will continue to bring you brilliant racing action all throughout the year. Definitely check out our social medias to see what else is on the calendar, as the safety car should be peeling off any moment now to give the lead of the race over to Tim Stahl to set the pace for the grid. I'm seeing a lot of Colombians around Tim Stahl at the moment. That is a precarious position to be in there as the lead driver for JSRA Team A. But we are about to get going racing, ladies and gentlemen. The drivers have been given a speed limit of 81 miles per hour. As soon as that goes green, we are off racing, and away they go. Tim Stahl gets away very, very cleanly from the two Colombians, already jockeying for position between themselves, maybe trying to figure out who's going to attack. Raven Plummer, they're also looking to get involved, but there is some carnage there. I see drivers going off left and right. That is Estefano Barrera, and I see Jaden Harrison tumbling down the order. I'm not sure if contact was made between the two of them, and Noble Racing is now nowhere to be found. Tim Stahl gets away cleanly. Raven Plummer just behind. Stephen Pommel's trying to get into the mix along with Via Vicencio. It's happening already, Kale. I cannot keep up. This is madness. Tim Stahl, the only sure thing at the moment, well ahead of the pack, getting away very, very clean in there for himself.
It looks as though we have a safety car. And looking back at the replay, Chad, it was the two Venezuelans who seemingly always are flying in formation they just got a little bit too close for comfort in the first corner, making contact and essentially pushing each other off the track, which promoted Raven Plummer and Carlos Villavicencio up into P2 and 3, respectively. Stephen Pommels started a few positions down further back and finds himself now in P4. Tommy Gore was at the back of the grid and now sits in P6.
That is
I
crazy.
That is
I,
absolutely crazy indeed.
I was looking at it
What?
and I see a driver there peeling off into the pits. I'm not sure who that was. It was Tommy Gore who went into the pits there. I'm not sure if he had a drive through, maybe jumped the start or something might have happened there, or could have been going too fast under the safety car conditions, so had to serve a drive through and decided to do so under the safety car conditions, where he will rejoin. Not entirely sure, but right alongside his old friend there, Senna Sommerbell. But yeah, no, we are in for some action, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Anthony Eaton finds himself at the back of the pack. Luck is not favoring him at the moment, and I see Mitch and Wallace there also looking like he has to serve a drive through for speeding under the safety car conditions. And just looking at the field, we are in for some fighting for the next 16 minutes, because there are a lot of drivers out of position. Jaden Harrison and Estefano Barrera in 12th and 13th will have some work to do, along with Luis Felipe Yield, who I've lost on the timing sheet. I'm not sure. Oh, he is up in 5th. My apologies. I thought he had fallen a little further down than that. But Mark Anthony Eaton will have some work to do, as he was in the mix further up the order, but as of right now sits down in second to last position ahead of Mitch and Wallace. The field has been bunched up, Kale, and we will be going racing again at the start of the next lap on the safety car conditions. Right now, JSRA Team A sitting very nicely in positions 1 and 2, and this could be their chance to claw back some of the margin to Nova Racing, who dominated round 1.
And Tim, I think we'll be hoping that Lightning strikes twice in the same position and he's able to get away nicely and cleanly, just as he did at the start of this race. I believe the drivers will be going back up to racing speed in a single lane format. That should provide a little bit of a cleaner getaway if you're not jockeying for position right from the get-go. So we'll see how that plays out. Tim there getting those tires well hot to avoid any bogging down at the start of the race here. I think we're going to get going here at the end of this lap. They're coming through the final chicane. They managed to keep it clean, and I think that's Tim away, putting his foot flat to the floor. Not quite yet, is he?
Not just yet. So I think
Nope,
he's
not
waiting
quite
for
yet.
the very last minute, or the servo timer has just come up. So in
No.
3, 2, 1, we should be going back to racing conditions right about now, ladies and gentlemen. And Raven Plummer already getting away very nicely there. She had the reaction time ready for Tim Stahl, who has to come through in second position. There is more carnage, it looks like, in the background there, and away we have gone. I'm not sure which drivers have lost out there, but Felipe Gil already making up a position on Stephen Pommels there, the two neck and neck heading down to turn 4. And they are running quite wide on that exit curb, and there's some more chaos back there. Not sure what just happened. That
And
looks
they're
like
getting it all wrong in that left-hander there, sorry, that right-hander there, Chad, and falling well down the order. I saw a Venezuelan as well getting it wrong, following in suit and running off the track. Andres Ceballos has been disqualified for not taking that drive-through. And Raven, I think, got the jump of a lifetime, was absolutely timed it perfectly and moves up into P1. Yield now back up into P2, 1.3 seconds behind Plummer. And as his work cut out for him, his teammate Estefano Barrera in P3, Dominguez in P4. Saw a lot happen a while ago, but I think managed to get through cleanly. Iman Rayan now into P6. Michael McName is taking advantage of all the carnage happening around him, finds himself into P7. Mikhail Charles crosses the line as well, and they are almost 3 wide. That's Vince Da Silva, Mikhail Charles, and Bell there into the first corner. It's all popping off here. The JSRA Racing Team C they don't seem to be a team at all. They're absolutely racing through some of these corners
Oh,
here
there
as we
goes.
see Villavicencio getting it a little bit wrong there, going deep into that right-hander, but keeping it on the track, which is all that matters at this point in time. We saw what happened for Tommy. He was at the back of the grid and found himself right up at the front. If you manage to pull a Kimani Eastman, you may find yourself in a very advantageous position in not so long a time. But right now, the field is definitely spread between the top three and then the rest of the drivers, P1, 2, and 3, approaching the first corner. And we have some drivers not even on the same lap as them as yet.
Absolutely,
It's
and
going to
looking
be
at the field, Kale, Jaden Harrison and Estefano Barrera also seem to have gotten a blistering restart there. Those two drivers are close by as Jaden gets Dominguez there coming out of turn one, but Jaden Harrison trying to close back up to that front three, who are now Raven Plummer is sitting with two Noble Racing drivers in her rearview mirrors, and we know those two drivers are capable of working as a team. But up and down the order, Kale, the action is coming fast and furious. Tommy Gore finds himself out of position, dropping down the order. Senna Somerville there as well out of position. Mark Anthony Eaton also seemed to have gained quite a few positions on the restart. He currently sits in the final points paying position there in P12 and will be looking to make further improvements as Jaden Harrison seems to have
falling down the
had
order.
a spin, and that is taking him well down the order, and in order to rejoin safely he has to wait for a lot of these cars to go by. Ooh, that looked close, but he managed to avoid any kind of carnage there. But their work is cut out for them, and the two Colombians falling away from Raven Plummer, who seems to have the drive at the moment. Maybe the two Colombians have a bit of damage that is costing them some pace. This is a high downforce dependent car, as Jaden Harrison battling it out with Senna Somerville there, it looks like. Or is that Via Vicencio? I'm not entirely sure.
Well, that is Johan Kandra Kusuma Patura. Sorry about that. It's Johan from now on. They're going side by side with Jaden, absolutely slicing and dicing there into that first corner. Johan proving that he's here not to play, but if he's going to play, he's going to play very, very hard. Mark Anthony here behind Carlos, trying to make inroads here on the Venezuelan, and he is currently driving for Team B for the JSRA. Raven Plummer with the fastest lap. It's fastest lap after fastest lap for her. She's definitely not waiting about up there at the front of the grid. Perhaps a little bit more comfortable with this track than Road Atlanta, but we can see Mikhail Charles and Michael McName. They have Vincent Da Silva behind them. This would be the perfect opportunity to work together, extend that gap, and towards the end of the race, battle it out for track position. But I don't think they're thinking about that at all right now.
Yeah, no.
McName on Mikhail Charles ahead, heading through the right hander. Mikhail, they're going a bit deep. Michael seems to have gotten the better run, and they're side by side now, coming up the hill into a very tricky braking zone. And it's a right hander that is very awkward, especially with these cars on these brakes. Both of them keeping it cleanly through there and live to fight another day. But Chad, why are these teammates battling so early on?
Yeah, no, I certainly don't understand it. You have cars behind you that are close and chasing. Tim Stahl, we know, is a rocket ship, and there he is getting by Vince Da Silva. He is now going to come and attack both of these drivers. This is the perfect chance to play the team game and use each other to pull you along to gain an advantage here, or to defend from Stahl. But if you're fighting amongst each other, that certainly is not going to be advantageous when it comes time for Tim Stahl to get into that action. So we will keep an eye on these two, but maybe they will wise up knowing who is behind them, because Tim Stahl, again, ladies and gentlemen, was the man on pole, had an incident in the second restart and finds himself tumbling down the order, and is right now lost it there on the exit of 4, manages to keep it pointing in the right direction, and he will soldier on. Sorry, Kale.
No, I'm sorry. I was about to cut you off there. I thought Tim was about to barrel into the side of Vince Da Silva, but managed to hold those brakes, or rather the brakes managed to hold him and keep him from causing absolute disaster there for Vincent da Silva. And Tim, now with 7 minutes left to go in this race, finds himself in P11, and P10 is where you're going to want to be for the reverse, where it puts you on pole for the second 20-minute race. It's already been 13 minutes, and I have no idea where the time went. So much has been happening further towards the back of the grid. Michelle Wallace getting very close to the back of Luis Daniel Velez. And I think it was Tommy Gore and Julia Brown who were battling it out. Tommy there losing out a couple of positions, but those from P17 down to about P21 are so close. There's a little battle going on back there for P16. Michelle Wallace driving for JSRA Racing Team B and is managing to hold his own, it seems. There in 17th. Roger Keller here a little bit on the back foot in the last position here, trying to make a move on Stephen Pommel's heading down into the first corner. Stephen there with the Optimum Racing line kind of parks the bus there and closes the door on Roger Keller. He'll have to try again. But further up the grid in P9 is Carlos Villavicencio, getting very close to Vincent da Silva ahead of him, or rather it's Mark Anthony Eaton, Carlos and Vincent da Silva in a three-way battle now for P8. And Mark there looking very racy. I know he had managed to get his times down to compete with the top drivers during practice session, but this is not practice. This is the race, and this race has so many unforeseen circumstances, like for example 24 other drivers on the track.
No, absolutely.
So we're gonna
yeah, no, I've seen Mark doing practice sometimes, and he has this habit of sticking with drivers to kind of see how best to follow. But right now he may not be looking ahead, he needs to be looking behind, as Tim Stahl is on the offensive and they are neck and neck heading up towards turn 8, sorry. And still neck and neck. Yeah, no, still neck and neck heading down the back straight here. Who is going to be braver on the brakes when we get to the chicane? I think Tim might have the better line here to take the advantage, and sweeps across the cover off that move, gets it done, and Mark Anthony Eaton finds himself losing out to Tim Stahl. But maybe this is a good chance for him to use Tim Stahl to catch the two drivers ahead who are certainly off the pace of these two titans of the sim racing scene here at the JSRA. So Mark Anthony Eaton might be looking to use Tim, who is a little bit quicker, to get back into the fight with the two drivers ahead now that he has lost out to Tim Stahl. And further up ahead, Iman Rayan. Tim there seems to be getting that corner very wrong, but Iman Rayan here in P5, sorry, trying to take the fight to Dominguez for that fourth position, the first position off the podium, as the front three are miles ahead of these two. I say miles ahead, it's about 9 seconds, but that is kind of miles ahead when you are talking about the margins that we have been getting from these drivers.
And there's Tim Stahl, Chad, getting by Vince da Silva, and will quickly be working to dispatch of Carlos Villavicencio, and Eaton following suit, getting past Vincent da Silva as well. Now moves himself up into P10. That strategy between the two JSRA teams seems to be working. Mark sitting in the slipstream and perhaps even following one or two racing lines from Tim Stahl ahead of him to capitalize on his own speed. And there makes a tiny mistake. I think that may be a little bit of the commentator's curse for Mark there. But it's going to be advantageous for Jaden Harrison, who finds himself now into P10. And Tim Stahl already within a second of the next driver ahead, Carlos, who is 4 seconds behind Michael McName and Mikhail Charles. Those two know a little bit of breathing room between them, about 1 second, but Michael McName and Mikhail Charles are teammates and have been battling it out for so long. Vincent da Silva now trying to get past Jaden Harrison, 3 tenths between them, but Jaden is not going to make it easy at all, taking a different line there through turn 8. And who is that?
That is
facing
Pommels.
the wrong way.
That is Stephen Pommels, ladies and gentlemen. Pommels having a rough go of it. I see some of the drivers have packed it up for the first race. Ceballos, Paisley, and I'm not sure if Pommels will follow suit now, 30 seconds off the back of the rest of the field. But we are still on board with Jaden Harrison. Tim Stahl up ahead is where we want to be looking at the moment. putting the pressure on Vicencio, who gets it wrong, and that should gift Tim Stahl that position. Or maybe that was Vicencio realizing that, you know, he may not have the pace, so he will just gift that position to Stahl and try to follow suit. Stahl now
Speaking of
has
gifting positions, Chad, here's Mission Wallace snatching a position away from his teammates. Perhaps a little bit of team orders there between Mission and Kimani Eastman, but I think I saw that one coming from a mile away. Further up the order in P6 is Mikhail Charles, about to make it P5, as he looks to be getting very close to the back of Ramiro Dominguez. There they are, nip and tuck through the final chicane. Dominguez not getting a proper exit and allows Mikhail Charles to finally put a car between himself and his teammate Michael McName. He moves himself now up into P5. An excellent race for the Trinidadian thus far. 1.5 minutes left in this race, and Raven Plummer has been holding down the fort. I'm not going to mention her name another single time, Chad. I don't want to call down anything on her. She's been doing brilliantly. So let's see what's happening for Johan and Kimani Eastman, just moving sort of backwards a little bit, is Kimani Eastman after losing that position to Michelle Wallace. There is Ramiro Dominguez. It seems to be moving into the pits. Perhaps that incident, after that little slip and slide there through the final chicane, it seems as though those tires are perhaps done, and decides to retire. Senna Somerville closes out the top 10. And if he stays there, will be finding himself at the front of the grid for the second race coming in just a few short moments. But right now, Tim Stahl in P7, he was way down the order and finds himself back up into P7. That's that raw speed that we spoke about in the series info. These drivers are absolutely pushing these cars to the limit, and the perfect example of such is Tim Stahl.
Yeah, no, certainly, Kale, and it seems we have a couple of DNFs now. Some of the drivers may be hanging it up for this race, thinking that maybe, you know, their fortunes will turn around in the second race. But Senna Somerville right now putting the pressure on Vince Da Silva, the lead driver and head of GT Panama. At the moment, Tim Somerville looks to have the pace advantage and is right on the gearbox of Da Silva at the moment. He might
coming across the line is Raven Plummer, I think, to finish that lap, or one lap left.
One lap to go, so we are currently riding on board with Senna Somerville, and he looks to have gotten the move done there as we head around to the final straight. But Raven Plummer at the moment starting the final lap, and Estefano Barrera looks to be getting racy with his teammate here in the dying stages, maybe now realizing that Raven is too far ahead of the field, so maybe it's just about driver's pride at the moment for finishing position, trying to take the fight to Felipe Eel ahead, but not quite there at the moment. You know, maybe lost a bit of time there in the fast sweeping turn 5. Not looking like he may get anything done. But Raven Plummer now on the back straight, heading towards the line, drove, I think, an almost perfect race from the restart, got the jump on Stahl and just never looked back, you know, kept it clean. And here she comes to cross the line to take victory for JSRA Team A in the first race. Felipe Yil and Estefano Barrero will come through for Noble Racing in second and third to round out the podium. Iman Rayan manages to hold on to P4 with the charging Mikhail Charles behind him to take P5 for JSRA Team B, and Michael McName comes across P6. Tim Stahl, a recovery drive there to, you know, get himself back into the points, and takes P7 via Vicencio. P8, Senna Somerville takes P9. Da Silva crosses for P10. Luis Daniel Velez comes across a P11, and Mark Anthony Eaton will take the final point on offer in this race in P12. And the rest of the drivers will be coming around to round out. After Mitch and Wallace, all the other drivers were a lap down, so they are already classified as finished. Mitch and Wallace will be the last lead lap classified finisher. Now comes across the line for JSRA Team B. That was exhausting, Kale. I am I am a little bit tired after that one, and I am sitting here talking about the driving. I cannot imagine being in the car on a grid this stacked with this much talent and this much
Well,
action.
well, Chad, we have it all to do over again in just a few short moments' time, as we'll be having a reverse grid, and it's going to be Vincent da Silva on pole, having finished in P10. The reverse grid is sure to mix up the order, perhaps put it back into the correct order, as this grid, the way how it started is not at all how it finished, bar a few at the front. And it's important to note that while Raven did take victory, and kudos to her, the fact that Felipe and Estefano, even though they were battling it out right to the end, as they always are, we can see it's becoming quite the pattern. They finished 2 and 3, and that's going to be big points for the Nova Racing Team A in the championship. Tim Stahl, Raven Plummer, and Jaden Harrison, the only drivers. Well, actually, Jaden didn't even finish this first race. It's going to be just Raven Plummer and Tim Stahl collecting points for JSRA Team A here in the first race. And this may spell disaster in a few more races' time when the championship points are going to be tallied up. And Nova Racing is looking very strong, even though they're not winning these races. Well, even though they haven't won this race, I
Yeah,
think
no.
they definitely have collected more points from this race than the JSRA team A.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It looked like it would have been an all-out war between those two teams, given that Jaden, Raven, and Stahl all look to be racy for JSRA Team A, but Jaden Harrison having a tough day in the office, finds himself way down the order there. So not quite yielding the result. And Tim Stahl having a rough go of it as well in the latter stages of, well, having to do a recovery drive in the latter stages of this race. But yeah, no, Noble Racing still looking very, very strong. And even with those two drivers, Daniel Velez takes some points as well further down the order for that team. And all these points will certainly make a difference if these teams get closer as the championship progresses on. But right now, still Noble Racing looking like the team to beat, even without taking victory here this evening, taking P2 and 3 from Raven Plummer on JSRA Team A, who won the race. So, yeah, no, Kale, it is certainly going to be a championship for the books, but right now the danger team is still Noble Racing.
Definitely, definitely, definitely. So we're gonna have maybe just another minute or so before the start of the second race. And like I said before, it's going to be a reverse grid. And if you're just joining us, this is the second round in the Chase for Pace Team Series. And we're here around Donington Park, 3.1 kilometers, 11 corners, here with about 25 drivers out on the grid in the Radical SR3 XXR. The first round was at Road Atlanta, where Nova Racing definitely dominated those two races. And now it seems as though JSRA Team A may be trying to fight back, but unfortunately, Tim Stahl, who did take pole for the first race, had a bit of a mix-up and found himself down the order. Even Plummer just won the first race, but Nova Racing's Estefano Barrera and Felipe Gil taking home P2 and 3. Now
And
it is the reverse grid starting in just about another minute or so, and Vincent Da Silva finishing P10 in the first race will now start on pole for the second.
absolutely. And Tim Stahl there, who finished seventh, starts in P4, and this is his chance to make amends for the first race. He should have the pace on the three drivers ahead of him, so maybe needs to work his way through those three drivers, Vince Da Silva, Senna Somerville, and Via Vicencio, very quickly to kind of get himself to the front of the pack and just drive off into the sunset, as the saying goes, whilst the rest of the quick drivers have their work to do a little further back. So we are getting the lights, and again, remember, the safety car will lead the field away on a formation lap before we go racing from a rolling start. There comes the safety car down the between the two sets of drivers on the grid, and away they go on the formation lap. We will see if Tim Stahl can make something happen in this race to make amends for his first race. But we are once again, ladies and gentlemen, gonna be looking for action-packed drama up and down the order by the time this race settles into a groove. And the first getaway wasn't as clean as we had hoped. We did say that some contact was predicted, given the size of the grid. Somebody's gonna make a mistake somewhere. It happens to the best of them, and certainly on a grid this size, it is easier to not take into account everybody around you. You don't know what they're doing, so you don't know what could happen. But we have put the race number 1 behind us. We will see what the drivers have to offer here in the second race of the evening, and Vince da Silva will be the driver to get us going by the time we get around the next few corners to get back to start finish and go racing once again here at Donington Park in the Radical Cup.
And Chad, you mentioned, well, we all know Tim Stahl is no slouch, especially here at Donington. We've seen him absolutely pushing this car to its very limits, the car and the track to their very limits. He's definitely a rocket ship around here. But let's not forget, last night, Tim Stahl was unable to get past Senna Somerville, who currently sits ahead of him. So we're gonna, we always say it's one thing to catch and another thing to pass. So we'll see if Tim will be able to make light work of Senna ahead. I think that's definitely a battle to watch. And speaking of battles, Vincent da Silva rounding the final corner now. They will have to get to their speed limit of 81 kilometers per hour. Keep that speed there until we see the green flag to go racing for another 18 minutes of racing action here at Donington. And they are away, and we can already see there in the background 4-5 wide coming down the start-finish stretch. But it's going to be Senna Somerville going around the outside of Vincent da Silva to take the lead of this race early on here. It's Carlos Villavicencio now in P3, Tim Stahl keeping his nose clean there in P4, Mikhail Charles and Michael McName in P5 and 6, nip and tuck as they were in the first race. Mikhail Charles trying to get by Tim Stahl there. No inter-team orders between those two drivers for JSRA Team A and C. Estefano Barrera and his teammate Luis Felipe Gil in P8. And well, they were P8 and P7, but Barrera getting past Michael McName there through turn 9. Now coming up over the hill to start the back straight, and it's Tim Stahl still in P4 trying to get past Carlos ahead of him, and he's almost side by side. It looks as though Mikhail Charles wants to get involved in this action, but it's going to be Senna Somerville. An excellent race start for him here in the Radicals, and Tim, they're almost side by side. A bit of contact between himself and the Venezuelan, and he finds himself into P2, but there was some contact there. And I do believe that Carlos Villavicencio is going to be filing some sort of complaint as Michael McName and Mikhail Charles pushing each other off the track there into the turn 1. It's 4 wide into the first corner. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of carnage, and there's a Jamaican driver sideways. Now, backways rolling back onto the grid. But Vincent da Silva, who was P1, manages to get through it cleanly. And it's only the second lap of this race, and there's so much happening. Oh my goodness, 2 cars going 2 wide into corner number 5, but I think that may have been Tim. No, it was not Tim. That looked to be Stephen Pommels there, perhaps, just getting it all wrong to that corner. There's so much going on, Chad.
No,
but
absolutely, and there's some more carnage there on the exit of 8. Kale, it's been an action-packed first few minutes, but Senna Somerville got away cleanly, manages to keep his nose clean. Estefano Barrero, we saw spinning off there through turn 1 on the previous lap, tumbled down the order, so that is a blow for Nova Racing. Raven Plummer has not made much progress in the early stages. I am sorely mistaken. Raven Plummer sits in P4 at the moment. A safety car has been called to get the grid back up to get bunched up, as lots of carnage happened there. Not on the first lap, it seemed, but on the second lap of the race. Or was that lap one? That may have still been
That
lap
was
one.
the second lap. The first lap was you blink and you miss it. There was
Yeah.
so much action going
Yep.
on. But the first lap was relatively clean. We had almost, I think we were 5 wide coming down the start finish straight towards the back of the grid there and still managed to get through the first lap cleanly. It was the start of the second lap where drivers, probably getting a little bit more comfortable now, but still not not going to just be settle rather for the position they're in, always trying to get past the drivers around them, not perhaps just not being a little bit enough, not enough patience. I think I would say that's the word I'm looking for. Drivers not exhibiting enough patience there into some of these corners because I mean you dip a wheel off the track and the gravel will take you away. That is the nature of this track here. We see them using up the gravel during qualifying, but that's when it's you alone on your racing line. When we have drivers going 2 and even 3 wide through some of these corners, you've got to be a little bit more conservative, a little bit more patient, and that is the result. The result is a few
A little
accidents
bit of
here, a few
carnage, yeah.
drivers spinning off here, a bit of carnage, but we have the safety car out here now, and it's going to be the safety car, then Senna Somerville. And we're going to have, I think, is it going to be this lap here we're going to be going? The safety car coming? The safety car is back into the pits. So we will have a countdown, and drivers will remain single file to get going. And Raven Plummer, will she be able to do it again?
Well,
To
right
sit in
now,
P4 and get the start of a lifetime.
my eyes are on Tim Stahl right there with Senna Somerville. He got the advantage of the safety car bunching the field up, but we are a go racing, ladies and gentlemen. Senna Somerville getting the drive, but Tim looks to be getting racy immediately with Senna Somerville, who has to be positioning his car in a defensive manner right away as Tim Stahl is on the charge, and Felipe Yiel right behind will be watching these two, wondering, will somebody get it wrong for me to pounce and get a victory here for Noble Racing in the second race? There is some contact there between Senna and Tim Stahl, and the contact continues all the way around to turn 8. Stahl there going wide, and exactly what I said happening would happen did happen. Felipe Yiel comes out of turn 8 with the lead of the race. Stahl there tumbling down the order, and now it's on Raven Plummer to try and repeat what she did in the first race, right there with Felipe Yiel 4/10 of a second, and there's still carnage there in the background as Eaton, Stahl, and Daniel Velez are tumbling down the order. And there's somebody there in the background pointing in the wrong direction, and their cars rejoining. It's just all popping off here in the race. Looking behind the two leaders, I think was a safety car called. They look to be slowing down once again, and I think another safety car was called there with the carnage in the background. I am not sure what happened that time around, but
Well, Chad, I can tell you exactly what happened between Senna and Tim there. There, the rivalry is not developing. It is a full-grown adult at this point in time. Tim there definitely getting fed up with being behind Senna a few too many times in a very short period of time, and trying to get past him, and Senna there making that car as wide as possible. There was contact between them heading up into turn 8. They managed to keep it clean, or rather, they managed to keep it going. But I think that's getting back on the power, trying to be the first to get back on the power and maintain track position. Both drivers basically throwing themselves out of that one. Um, Again, patience is definitely the name of the game here with a grid as stacked as this one. The race belongs to anyone, but more than anyone else, it's definitely going to be Raven Plummer, who has Felipe Yiel here ahead of her. And she'll be hoping that she can either stick with him to get points for her team or take the victory. And Stephen Pommels in P3 behind her, racing for the JSRA Team B, I believe it is, will be trying to stay with her or perhaps even capitalize on a mistake here or there from Raven or Felipe.
yeah,
Hopefully, we can see another restart, but a cleaner one this time.
absolutely. And looking up and down the order, Jaden Harrison from last on the grid finds himself in the points here for this race. So trying to make amends for a very, dare I say, rough go of the first race, and trying to make amends here. Estefano Barrero has found himself back in the points, as has Mark Anthony Eaton, given the contact that those two drivers suffered. They're in the final 2 points paying positions at the moment, but we're about to go racing again as we get the go, and the drivers already 2 and 3 wide. Pommel's there looking to, oh, that's Somerville actually trying to take the fight to Raven Plummer out the gate. Senna Somerville looking racy already, gets by Stephen Pommels, as does Mikhail Charles behind, and Pommels will be looking to get back into the fight, but Charles at the moment is putting the pressure on Senna Somerville on the restart, and we see all of the grid coming through. It looks to be cleaner this time around, as only Via Vicencio seems to have gotten it wrong there coming out of turn 5, but Raven Plummer and Felipe Yield up ahead. Raven and Felipe side by side. Who is going to come out ahead? I think Felipe had the better line there, but Raven might have gotten the power down a little earlier and gets a better drive down the straight, pulls out of the slipstream. They are going to be neck and neck going into the chicane, but I think Felipe covered that off very, very nicely. But Raven once again getting the better drive down the straight and pulls out of the slipstream one more time. Can this be the time she gets the move done to take the lead of the race? The two are side by side going into turn 1. Raven on the outside, Yield on the inside, and Felipe, I think, will keep it. Again, Senna Somerville there getting it wrong on the exit and finds himself tumbling down the order. Pommel's back into third, but Raven Plummer is putting the pressure on Felipe at the moment, trying to get that top spot away from Felipe Yield, and she is...
And there in the... Sorry, Chad, there in the background was Estefano Barrera careering off into the barriers there, getting it very wrong, or perhaps there was some contact from behind. But right now, it's going to be Raven Plummer, the lone driver for JSRA Team A, and Felipe Yield, the lone driver for Nova Racing Team A. They're up at the front. Let's not forget about what's happening at the back. We have Iman Rayan putting the pressure on Ramiro Dominguez there for P4. And further down, we see Kimani Eastman, Roger Keller, and Vincent Da Silva, all very close. And let's not forget about Carlos Villavicencio, still battling it out for positions there. For the final points paying position is going to be Eaton, Charles, Velez, and Somerville. Somerville, who was way up at the front of the grid, now towards the back. And there is Iman trying to get a move there on Dominguez, and unfortunately getting it a bit wrong there, falling a bit down the order. Eaton picking up a DNF for this second race. Very unfortunate for him. And there's Iman getting past Julia Brown, but I don't think it's going to stick. Did it stick? No, it did not. There's Julia falling down the order as well. And I think we're going to have to, look now at Luis Daniel Velez, who is side by side with Somerville, it seems. Or is that Lopez? Yes, it is Lopez. Lopez there, almost losing the back end of that Radical. And there's contact between Somerville and Velez, and that puts Somerville into the barriers. Just a little bit more patience from Somerville, and we could see some excellent racing from him. I think that's going to be it for his race here tonight, as he tries to get back out onto the track. But the drivers now, sort of settling into a bit of a groove, as we would say, Chad, and the closest fight here is going to be between Andres Lopez and Luis Daniel Velez.
Yeah, no, and at the moment we already have 5 DNFs. I think some of those drivers may be just getting frustrated with the situation around them and not being able to continue on, as well as, taking some heavy damage there early on in this race. But Daniel Velez and Andres Lopez currently putting on a battle. I think Velez may have finally gotten the move done and will be clearing off into the distance away from Lopez. Mitchen Wallace behind may want to get in on the action for JSRA Team B, but looking a little bit unsettled there at the moment, but is looking like he could take the fight to Andres Lopez ahead. We'll keep an eye on that battle further up the order. We have Ceballos battling Bell for the fifth position at the moment, not looking too close. But Raven Plummer still seems to be trying to close that gap down to Yale in the lead. We have a three-way battle here going on. Mitch and Wallace, Bell, and Lopez all fighting for that 10th position. Some
Oh,
contact there from one of the
and that
drivers.
was and Kusuma Putra there making that drastic move from the left-hand side of the track to the right-hand side to go down the inside of Michelle Wallace. He's still there ahead. Michelle is with him. And Kimani Eastman there in the background trying to pick up the scraps, and Michelle Wallace is going to have to concede that position. No, he does not. They're still side by side, and I think Johan now just edging ahead. Can Michelle make something happen here heading into turn 8? He does try to make a move up the inside, but thinks better of it and lives to fight another day. And
And
Luis Daniel Velez ahead of them is closing in on Mikhail Charles as well.
yeah, no, the fighting is still happening up and down the order here as Tim Stahl is trying to get himself back into the points paying positions, currently battling with Roger Keller there. A ways to go before Tim can get back into the points, but we only have 5 minutes of racing action left at the moment. Stahl getting back by Roger Keller there. The two are still side by side. Stahl, I think, will have the better drive into the chicane, takes that position away. Vince Da Silva and Mitch and Wallace still fighting it out here for the final 2 points paying positions. I am not going to try and pronounce the name of the fellow in P10. I don't think I have it in me at the moment. But no, Kale, I think we finally, as you said, settled into some sort of rhythm here. Raven Plummer and Felipe Yiel up ahead, still doing a bit of fighting, but not quite the battle that is picking up somewhere further down the order. I am looking at the timing sheets to see where we're missing a battle. Ceballos and Bell still within 5/10 of each other, and Rayan behind, also trying to get into the mix. And there goes Bell. Oh,
It's
Rayan
Grant
just
Bell
coming
running wide
through.
and Ceballos. So, following suit there, both of them running a little bit wide. I don't think there was any contact, just perhaps nerves getting the better of them for those points paying positions there. It was P5, 6, and 7. Now Ceballos and now drops down to P8 and fighting with his countryman Luis Daniel Velez, who I think may have a little bit of a pace advantage and moves around it was the inside. It turned to the outside for corners number 4 and heading now into 5. And Luis Daniel Velez finds himself up into P8. Tim Stahl moves up past Roger Keller. We saw that move actually heading through the final chicane there, and it's going to be Raven Plummer trying to get past Felipe Yiel there, but these two so equally matched for pace, it seems that it's you make a mistake or you're gonna lose that position. But if any positions are gonna be made or any overtake is gonna be made here, it's gonna be a blink and miss type situation. Speaking of such, there is Eman Rayan getting past Grant Bell and now moving up into P4. That's an excellent result for Rayan so far with just a few more minutes left to go in this race. But we're going to stay on board with Raven Plummer as she tries to get past the Venezuelan. Felipe Yiel has driven a mighty race this time around, and Raven Plummer, she was in P4, I believe, for the restart of this race and finds herself now in P2. Stephen Pommel's all by himself in P3, but I think he's loving it, picking up some excellent points there for
Team C.
JSRA Team C, I believe. And this is not the closest, is it? Not the closest battle. The closest battle now is Tim Stahl trying to get past Andres Lopez to get himself as far up the order as he can to get some well-needed points for his team. And it's going to be clean as you like up the inside through turn 8. It's very clean between them, but he doesn't quite make the move stick as yet. May have to try something here, heading through turn 9, heading onto the back stretch, and
Yep,
Andres Lopez finally concedes that position.
Yep, that's move done once he had the inside line there for turn 9. I think that was the end of that move, but I think that's as far as Stahl will get at the moment. He is not gonna make it back into the points, I don't think, with only a minute and change to go plus 1 lap. So I think We will have 2 more laps to go when the 2 leaders cross the line, as they should get back to the line before time elapses, but that would be the final timed lap and then 1 lap to go after. So we have about 2 laps left for these drivers, and Daniel Velez currently giving chase to Mikhail Charles, trying to make up 1 more position for Noble Racing at the moment. Maybe some more needed points to try and extend their gap from JSRA Team A, who still is not quite there with Noble Racing. Noble Racing still looks the more complete team at the moment. Jaden Harrison not scoring any points in either race. Tim Stahl not scoring any points in this race. Raven Plummer, the sole man on a mission at the moment for that team. And these drivers are gaining position while battling, it seems. Mikhail Charles and Luis Daniel Velez taking those positions away from Iman Rayan. They're heading through turns 2 and 3. And we continue on with those two trying to battle it out, and I think they seem close enough to Bell that Bell is within striking distance. So this is a 4-way battle for P4, 5, 6 and 7 at the moment. We will see which one of those rivals manages to come out ahead by the time we get to the line, and that is Mikhail Charles, I think, going off there, getting it all wrong, coming up to turn 9 and loses out. So that gives Daniel Velez a clear path to attack Bell, with Iman Rayan still behind, keeping abreast of the situation. But time has elapsed, ladies and gentlemen. I am not sure if the drive was in the lead started that lap. I believe that lap should be the final lap for Yale and Plummer. And those two drivers,
sorry about that, Chad. Plummer here, still trying to make something happen. The gap is virtually nothing between them, 2/10, if even so much. He's trying to go around the outside here into turn 8, but Felipe placing that car excellently and not giving her the light of day to make the move work. Raven here, I think, is going to apply maximum pressure, sitting firmly in that slipstream. She pulls out to the left-hand side. Does she have enough speed to pull up alongside and disturb him heading into the final chicane? They'll be side by side heading into the final chicane, but Felipe will have that inside line, and Raven will have to follow suit. She doesn't get the run that she would like heading up to the line, and I think that's going to be a win for Felipe Yale. Victory for the Venezuelan, victory for Noble Racing in the second race. Raven Plummer, an excellent race from her, but bested by the Venezuelans once again. Stephen Pommels picking up the scraps for JSRA Team C. Iman Rayan fought and held off the position from Mikhail Charles, Ramira Dominguez, and Johan Kandra Kusuma Pantura. Sorry, Kusuma Putra. I don't know why I keep trying. Excellent race there from Johan Ceballos with the P8 finish, followed by Luis Daniel Velez, Grant Bell, Kimani Eastman in 11, Vincent Da Silva in P12, the final points paying position. Michelle Wallace seemingly getting up to speed in the final moments there of that race, coming across the line in P13. Andres Lopez in P14, Roger Keller in P15. Tim Stahl unable to do much more than he did. That recovery drive not panning out how he would have wanted, finishes P16. Carlos Villavicencio in P17, and Senna Somerville, Julia Brown, Mark Anthony Eaton, Estefano Barrera, and Jaden Harrison, all DNF, as well as Michael McName. In the first race, it came down to about 20 or 18 drivers, and it's the same thing in the second race. There just isn't enough space in the town for the 25 of us here at Donington Park. And it's going to be, well, it was an excellent race in my book. I'm still trying to think about my pick for overtake of the day and driver of the day. I think I'd have to give that to Raven Plummer, an excellent drive in the first and second race. My driver of the day is going to have to go to Raven Plummer, but I'm not sure. There's so many overtakes. Chad, what's your overtake for the day?
I don't think I've had time to process it. There have been so many that I'll just have to maybe look back at the replay and decide at that time. It's a little bit hard to fathom all of it as you're trying to keep up with the action and catch the battles on track. You're not even so much focused on the craft itself and the beauty of it, but there were certainly some brilliant overtakes, and we would be amiss to not, give them their dues. So I will not do them a disservice by trying to pick one right off the bat. You are correct in in your pick for driver of the day. I do think Raven Plummer is worthy of it, but not to discount a driver like Felipe Yiel, who did take a podium position in the first race as well as the victory in the second race. So he also has a strong case for driver of the day, I think. But yeah, no, certainly some brilliant racing action provided. And yeah, we will be talking to a few of the drivers here in the aftermath of the action-packed double header of Donington Park. Just give us a moment while we try and get the drivers in the commentary box. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will be starting the interviews off with Stephen Pommels, who took third place in the second race. Should be joining me now. Pommels, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, Stephen. A brilliant second race there, but talk to us about the overall event.
My mind is a jumble right now. Yeah, the both of the races were just a matter of keeping your nose dry, and I pretty much thought I did for the first race, but I got caught up in a couple melees, and that just ruined my race. I think I had like red damage on my rear, so that kind of just threw me threw my race out the bin for the first race, and the second race was pretty much more of the same. I don't know, I have some sort of magic on my side sometimes where people just part in front of me on the first lap. So I made use of that. Um, both races, but for the second race, I didn't get taken out, fortunately. So I really enjoyed that. Couldn't hold on to Raven or Lewis ahead. But that was fine by me. I just kept the car on the block stuff and brought it home. So can't be too pissed about that.
Absolutely. So yeah, no, congratulations on the results, and good luck in the future events.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right. Okay, next up we will be talking to Luis Felipe Yiel.
Hello? Stephen, we cannot hear you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, so yes, we'll be talking to Luis Felipe Yiel, and I believe Luis Daniel Velez will be translating for him.
Yes.
All right, so I'm not sure if Felipe can hear me.
Yeah.
Felipe, ¿nos escucha? Perfect.
Okay. And so talk to us about the racing action. Congratulations on taking the victory here in the second race, and I think a podium in the first race.
Bueno, Felipe, háblanos de cómo fue la acción en carrera y pues de lograr un podio en la primera carrera y ganar la segunda.
Bueno, buenas noches. No, realmente en la primera carrera, más que todo, tratando de ver el ritmo del piloto alemán.
The first race was more of trying to see the rhythm of the German driver.
Y nada, al final hubieron varios incidentes, creo que él no supo manejar los sobrepasos, creo que no lo hizo muy bien sobrepasando, tenía que tener un poco más de paciencia en la primera carrera y nada,
At the end, there
logré,
was some accidents on which he was involved. Probably he did not manage it well, the overtaking, and that's why he went back. But yeah,
Em, y nada, ya después que detrás del piloto norteamericano, se llama Raven, creo. Y nada, traté de presionarlo, iba empujando lo más rápido que podía, pero la verdad es muy, muy buen piloto y no pude alcanzarlo, pero fue un buen segundo puesto en la primera carrera.
and well, then finally I was catching Raven. I was trying to push as far as I can. I was trying to make her make a mistake, but a very good driver. She did not bite, and happy with the second place.
Absolutely.
Y
Go ahead.
en la segunda carrera también los accidentes me ayudaron bastante y nada, fue al contrario, lo tuve atrás, traté de defenderme, cuidando el ritmo, cuidando no cometer errores y nada, fue simplemente el inverso de la primera carrera, pero estoy contento con el resultado por no haber entrenado mucho y estar competitivo.
The second race was like backwards from the first one. All of the accidents helped me a lot, and then she was behind me. But yeah, very happy with the first place in the second race, and very happy to win the race while not practicing a lot. So yes, very happy with it.
Absolutely. Congratulations to you and to your team. So I think you guys are solidly in the lead of the championship at the moment. We hope to see you continue your form.
Y bueno, pues muchas felicitaciones, Felipe, por el podio, por lo que lograste. Creemos que tu equipo está de primero en el campeonato, así que pues muy felices de tenerlo a ustedes y de tenerte aquí en el campeonato y lo mejor en lo próximo que viene.
No, muchísimas gracias a ustedes y nada, trataré de estar corriendo el campeonato completo. Esperemos que no se crucen mucho las carreras reales con las del campeonato virtual y nada, muchísimas gracias a toda la organización.
Well, no, thank you so much. Thank you for having us here. Very happy to race with you guys. I will attempt to complete all of the championship. I really hope that the real racing on which I am involved does not affect too much racing on the championship. Again, thank you so much for having us here, and thank you for the organization.
All right. Thank you guys as well, and congratulations again.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay, that was Luis Daniel Velez and Felipe Yil. Daniel Velez translating there for Yil, but we will be talking to our victor in the first race and second place in the second race, Miss Raven Plum. Or Raven, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Congratulations. Good results all around for you today. Talk us through both races.
Thank you. Yeah, race one, fantastic. I got the victory, but ultimately, I kind of failed. I kind of let the team down. Right, our entire objective was a 1, 2, 3 for our entire team, and Tim was in the lead, and he should have stayed in the lead. He definitely had the pace advantage over me. So our goal was to have him in front, me following, so we could optimize our time around the race. On the safety car restart, he just got a bit of a late start. I, of course, went past, and on the cold tires, got a bit of oversteer, and that was enough to ruin his exit in the old hairpin, and he lost it there. So I definitely should have returned that position earlier, because just having one of us here in Team A in the top 3, that of course is not what we were hoping for at all. So I'm happy I'm able to bring back a victory for the team, but we should have been able to do a lot more, and I think a good part of that blame is on me.
Yeah, but that's part of racing, I think. But overall, you did score some good points for the team here today. And race number 2, it seems you were putting the pressure on Felipe Yil there towards the latter stages, maybe trying to get that position to maximize the points for the team. We couldn't quite get it done. Talk us through that battle.
Yeah. When you get close enough with these cars, the dirty air becomes a very serious problem. So I put the pressure I could, as much as I could, and he slipped up here and there, but same rate I slipped up, so wasn't able to get that move done. And going side by side in the final chicane on that last lap, I was not going to make a move so desperate as to ruin both of our races. So I did what I could, hit the brakes as late as I could. He was still there, so a few more laps maybe could have got something done, but not by the end of the race. Fantastic battles from us, though.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, Raven, and hopefully your team strategies work out a little better in the future events.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so that takes us to the end of another broadcast. JSRA Chase Radical Cup. Certainly action-packed, and you heard the team games being played up and down the order. Certainly you should be tuning in with us if you enjoyed the racing action for next week's event. Another race to come in the Radical Championship and CTCC. Definitely check out our social media for any updates, as well as the points that will be posted, the official results following this race. And again, thank you to our streaming partners, the Sportsmax app, and to all our other sponsors, as well as just thank you for joining us here this evening, and we hope to see you again soon.
We are coming up to as there is a run.
Oh yeah.
He tried the switcheroo.
Yeah. You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I crouched you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the fate, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about you step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder the most, watching all these shit just buy down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We didn't celebrate, but right now I'm a toast, resurrected.
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the penultimate corner. Now coming through the final